Now, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. I think I would just be careful who I was recommending it to. I just think anyone who's looking for a fast-paced fantasy might be a little bit disappointed. Hi, my name is Terry Wessel and welcome back to Panic at the Book Club. This week we're discussing A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. If you'd like to take part in Panic at the Book Club, you can find out more information on how on the channel's intro video. I thought I'd save you on the whole big speech this week, but don't forget, I do list the next 4 books down below, and I accept your book feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comments below a video, send me a voice note, or even send me a short video of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message on Instagram. The skin of a wolf would bring enough gold to feed her sisters for a month. But the life of a magical creature comes at a steep price, and Fair just killed the wrong wolf. Taken prisoner by a high Fae lord, Fair realizes that her masked captor is hiding a lot more than she originally thought. But Fair's feelings for Tamlin burn through every warning she's heard about his kind. A shadow is falling across the lands, and if Fair can't fight it, then she'll lose everything. Just your friendly spoiler alert, if you haven't read this book yet, I would suggest going doing that first, because beyond this point there will definitely be spoilers. All the chapters were pretty good length and it was super easy to read. However, if I hear she clicked her tongue or my bowels turned watery one more time, I'm gonna go insane. Like, what does that even mean? Personally, I do prefer a book when it is from just one person's perspective, and because it was in first person, it painted a really good picture of what she was going through. Apart from it following very typical fantasy fashion, in the sense that you're never really sure if you are reading the names right or not, it was super easy to read and easy to follow. Out of all of the characters that we're introduced to, I honestly thought that the mercenary was going to have a lot more involvement than she did. Like, I suppose she was a necessary character because it wouldn't have been realistic for Nesta to go and look for Fair on her own, but I honestly thought she was going to resurface at some point. Like, it felt like the book put a lot of effort into making you want to like this character, only for her to not really be relevant. Like, after that second chapter, she doesn't appear again at all, apart from one brief mention later on in the book. Like, I liked Lucian's story arc. Like, his clear dislike of Fair at the beginning, and how he even risked his oath to Tamlin. But then you slowly begin to see their relationship change, especially when Fair gives up her own name to save him. Like, I could potentially see them becoming quite good friends because they actually do have quite a bit in common, and Lucian doesn't put up with Tamlin yet. See, I liked Tamlin. He sacrificed so much in order to save Fair, but I know I'm not supposed to like him, so I'm really curious as to what happens in that second book to change that. Like, he did lie to her, which, to be fair, I did not see coming. I did not question for a second that that was a part of the treaty, a life for a life. Like, it was just a big fat lie, but an understandable one. Like, he clearly didn't want to do it, and he did fall for her. He was just trying to save his people, and he couldn't have told her even if he wanted to. With Reese, I'm just going to presume that he becomes a better person in the next book. Like, I don't really know how I was supposed to feel about him. Like, on one side, I get why he did what he did, and the guy has gone through some trauma, but still, like, some of that was just not okay. I'm just a bit worried about how easily forgotten that's going to be in the next book. Like, need I say much about Fair's family? Like, they're end of. Like, her dad was happy letting all three of them starve to death rather than lift a finger. Like, he was perfectly happy letting his youngest daughter go out and risk her life every day in order to try and get some food on the table. Like, I get that he might have had a bad leg and all, but that didn't really seem to matter or mean much when he was pretty much just given all that money. Like, he seemed perfectly able to work then. I don't know, some of that kind of rung a little bit Hunger Games for me. Like, Katniss's mum was kind of the same. She, clocked off when things got hard, and Katniss had to deal with that. So, in the first couple of chapters, especially, it felt a lot like this book was trying too hard to be quite a few other books, fantasy books. And Fair's sisters weren't exactly much better. And even when she went looking for Fair, like, I mostly got the vibe that she went looking for herself rather than anything else, because, I don't know, to prove that she was right. And that all of that did really happen. Like, I did really feel bad for Fair when she realised that her family was not going to come after her. Like, they didn't even lift a finger to help her out when she was first taken. Like, if your dad's not even going to go through the effort of trying to put food on the table, he ain't going to travel to some dangerous, mystical fairyland in order to save you. Totally not a reason to dislike the book, but there were a few things that I just thought were really weird. For one, when Fair was taken to Prithian, she said it took them 2 days to get to their destination, but if she was in some mystical sleep, how would she know that? Like, you'd be able to tell that time in general had passed, but would you really be able to tell how many days had passed? Like, sometimes I take a nap and I could swear that I've been out for days when in fact it's only been a couple of hours. So, like, she ain't got no watch or phone or anything like that. And surely for an illiterate peasant, it would be really hard for her to specify exactly how many days had passed based on the sun. Like, I just feel like they glossed over that. The second mild and unnecessary issue that I had with this book, well, the fourth if you count the tongue clicking and the watery bowel thing, but when she was talking about the food and how the food that the fairies ate was similar to the food that she would find at home, like chicken and peas and bread and fish and all of that makes sense, right? But asparagus? Like, if they're growing asparagus in a place where people are starving, like, why not just grow something that's a lot easier to grow? Like, no wonder people are starving. Like, you're drinking hot water because you can't afford tea, yet you would fork out for asparagus. Like, it just doesn't seem like the likely thing that would be considered normal food where she's from. This is the last one, but at the end of the book, when they're saying that the lords are dropping their glittering kernels down on her, I just feel like there was a better way to say that. Like, it might just have been me, but I kind of feel like that ruined the moment. Like, I think most of the issues I had with this book were due to choice of wording and repeating really annoying phrases. But despite originally having some doubts about this book, I think I probably will give it a high rating. Like, I didn't anticipate everything that was going to happen. There were some moments that were really quite surprising and some moments that were suspenseful but a little bit more obvious. Like, it seemed really obvious to me that Amarantha was never going to let them free so easily. Like, I think Fair realised that she had messed up there as well. Like, I think she knew that they were never really going to get released immediately after the trials, and that kind of, it was written quite well and it helped build that suspense. Like, the first trial was great, and I was expecting the same level of detail throughout the other trials, but I was a little bit disappointed. It's just, that second trial just felt a little bit lazy, if I'm honest. Although the third trial was a lot better. Like, if something was going to psychologically mess somebody up, it would be that. Although I must say, I did think that Amarantha was going to bring in Fair's family and have Fair choose between maybe some Fae and her sisters or something like that. But straight up killing innocent Fae was messed up enough as it is, especially because she did feel guilty over the Fae that she killed in the first place. Like, I imagine she's going to be pretty traumatized in the next book. As you can probably tell, my feelings are a little bit all over the place with this book. It kind of feels a little bit like a guilty pleasure. Like, I imagine that if I'd have read it 14 years ago, I would absolutely have loved it. It would have been on my, top favourite books that I've read. But I did have some grievances with it, and I do get why others may have had problems with it. That being said, will I be reading the next one? Although I might not do it for book club, I think I might continue to read the others. Like, I'm interested to see how the characters develop and where they take it from here. But if you do want me to do an episode on it, then please let me know. I was going to do pink, but now I'm kind of thinking that that might be a little bit too much. Now, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. I think I would just be careful who I was recommending it to. I just think anyone who's looking for a fast-paced fantasy might be a little bit disappointed. Like, it's much more like a dark fairy tale romance fantasy in that order rather than a high epic fantasy. Like, it's a little bit slower at some points in order to build on the storytelling and the relationships in a little bit more of a natural way. Like, are there steamier romance books out there? Definitely. Are there more epic fantasy books out there? Absolutely. But it was actually quite a cute book with a suspenseful ending. Shelley said she just lacked the interest to finish this book. Like, at the beginning, it seemed like you were given this strong female character who could hunt and look after her family, only for her to go along with things and not question anything. This person who passed off ideas so easily just didn't seem like the person that you started off with. Although I did really enjoy this book, I do see where she's coming from, and the last half definitely did some heavy lifting. Like, that first chapter definitely felt like it was giving a very different promise of where the story was going to go and who the character was. But at the same time, I couldn't blame Fair for even subconsciously giving into a more comfortable way of living, especially after she was forced to hunt and serve her family, a family who treated her so poorly. Like, at the end of the book, it did describe the first time that Fair hunted, and it said how afterwards, after her family had eaten this meal, she had actually gone into the woods and cried because it isn't something that she wanted to do, and she knew that taking the life of, I think it was a rabbit, had permanently stained her soul. Like, it was never really something she wanted to do or liked doing, it was just simply out of necessity. So when given a life that she had never even dreamt was possible, like a standard of life that she never even dreamt was possible, I imagine that would be really difficult to turn away from. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book?
I honestly did try to read this book, but it wasn't really for me. I couldn't care less about the characters. Because if you can't get me invested in the characters, why the hell am I spending my time reading it? I think it started off all right. But as soon as she got there, it was like, and she wasn't like forced to be this lass who like sustained her family and forced to do these things to survive. She would kind of just turn into an absolutely boring individual. Yeah, no, I get it. I'm also bored, love. That's fine. Seem to miss out on like a lot of the world building elements because obviously she borrowed quite a lot of different elements from like more classical fantasy, which is completely normal and reasonable. And I think that gave me this element of, oh, it's just all a bit standard. I think that failed to like get me actually like involved in the world. And also it was just slow. I probably didn't give it a fair shake. I really, really tried. I hear some other people enjoyed it, so that's nice. I would not recommend this book ever to anyone because I don't want them to think I have bad taste.
I can honestly say it was not one of my all-time favorites this year. The story, I think, only really got interesting at about 65% of the way in. But it really bugged me how this, like, she was meant to be this, like, badass girl who is great with a bow and arrow. But I'll be honest, like, right at the beginning, it was a little bit too Hunger Games for me. And then as soon as she's in captivity, I say that in quotation marks, she just becomes this weak little person that needs like protecting all the time, like who's just got a bit of a gob on her. Anyway, one of the main things that really bugged me, he acknowledges her and calls her Feyre again. And then about 30 seconds later, he calls her Feyre again. He's acknowledging her as a person. This is all within maybe the first 12 hours that they've met. And she goes, "So he did remember my name at least." And it was like, girl, like he's been calling you by your name like since he met you. She kept saying, "I want to leave, I want to leave." And he literally was like, "Well, you can leave. Like, you can live anywhere in Prythian." And then, like, a couple of nights later, she's like, "Oh, I've learned there's no lock on my window and I can sneak out and rappel down the vine. I could plan my escape." And I'm like, he just told you that you could walk out the front door if you were really that desperate. So that really bugged me. There's so much that, like, could have been explored that would have been 10 times more interesting. When we finally get introduced to more fairies, more of the politics, more of the war, you know, more about this curse or whatever it is and the blight on the land. And I was glad that I did stick with it, like, just to get a better idea of what was going on. And now, like, now it's kind of annoying because I am kind of interested in what else happens, but I don't want to sit through another book where it's just going to be her going on and on about how fit her new boyfriend is. It bugs me that it was just interesting enough to sort of, like, keep me in it. So I gave it, like, 2 stars. It was 1 star up until 65% of the way in, and then it went up to 2 just because it got a little better. But yeah.
So next week we'll be discussing Poppet. And don't forget to get your comments and thoughts in by Monday the 11th of September at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok or Instagram. The following week there'll be no Panic at the Book Club, however we'll be picking up as normal on Tuesday the 26th of September with Over the Moon. Now don't forget, if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, I do now list the next 4 books down below along with the discussion dates so you can choose which one best suits you. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next week. Bye.